Alright, Bwinks is back, finally talking about some Descent of Dragons cards, because I heard the new announcement, and I need to get these done. So, we're on Shaman Priest was what was talked about last time. We got Lightning Breath. 3-cost spell, deal 4 damage to a minion. If you're holding a dragon, also damages its neighbors. So this is actually a very strong card that can be seen in a dragon. I believe it was seen in the Galakrond Shaman for a while, and now it's still there if someone runs it, but it's not run too much anymore. So it is actually a relatively decent card. I will give it 4 stars for very good, because it is a very strong card. If you have that dragon, it is a great card to mostly wipe out about 3 minions, so that's pretty good. Over here we got Cumulo Maximus, 5-cost 5/5 Shaman Elemental. Battle Cry, if you have overloaded any overloaded mana crystals, you get to deal 5 damage. Super strong card if you're playing like an aggressive overload type deck, but otherwise it really hasn't seen too much play, but it's still a relatively decent card, especially if you have like any kind of overload. It's still pretty good then. So I will give this 3 stars for playable. We got Corrupted Elementalist. So Corrupted Elementalist is a 5-cost 3/3 minion. Battlecry, invoke Galakrond twice. So the Galakrond for Shaman, invoking it will give you a 2/1 elemental with Rush. So doing this will give you a 3/3 and 2 2/1s with Rush, which is relatively good. I'd say it's a pretty good trade-off. It's invoking twice, which helps upgrade your Galakrond then as well. So a relatively strong card. I'd give it 4 stars for playable. Not playable, for very good. Very good. Not just playable. Because 3 stars playable, 4 stars very good, and 5 stars is, of course, meta defining. But I don't, if I'm remembering correctly, all of these cards in Descent of Dragons, I do not believe I give a single one of them 5 stars for meta breaking, because they're all like really good cards, but there's not like one that's like, oh man, you can make a whole deck around this. No. So 4 stars for very good. We got Dragon's Pack. 5-cost spell. Summon 2 2/3 Spirit Wolves with Taunt. If you've invoked twice, you give them +3/+3. Very strong card for the Galakrond Shaman package that I have seen. It's running any type of Galakrond Shaman that you see. Any type of Galakrond deck would, I believe, run this, actually, even, because it's actually very good. So I will give this 4 stars for very good. Innovation of Frost is a 1-cost, freeze an enemy, invoke Galakrond. So, obviously this card doesn't do too much, but invoking Galakrond is probably honestly worth about 1 mana. So you get to freeze an enemy, and you get a 2/1 with Rush. It's relatively balanced out in that way, so honestly it's actually a pretty good card. So I actually give it 3 stars for playable, because it still does balance out relatively decent. Squall Hunter. 4-cost 5/7 Shaman Dragon. Spell damage +2 and overload 2. So this obviously combos quite well with Cumulo. And this is just a super strong spell damage card. This is one of the best spell damage cards that I've seen out of really like any class. Besides this, one of the best spell damage cards is probably Malygos, but Malygos is 9 that you most likely cannot play any spells after you play him. Squall Hunter is you can play him and play a decent spell as well. Like you could play Squall Hunter and then follow it up with a Maelstrom Portal if you wanted to. So then you got 5/7, and then you deal 3 damage to the board and summon a 1-cost minion. That's obviously wild, but there's other good ones. Like you could play this, and then you could play a very strong Lightning Storm. That would do some good damage too. So obviously you got some good options with this of what kind of spells you might want to play, and it's got some good flexibility because of that. So therefore, I put this at 4 stars for very good. We got Storm's Wrath. Give your minions +1/+1, overload 1. This could be decent in an aggressive overload shaman, but giving your minions 1/1 and overloading 1 is good for some classes, but I don't think shaman is one of those classes that really wants it. Druid has more token type decks. Shaman really doesn't have that kind of decks, so this card really just kind of ends up falling flat because of what Shaman does. Shaman is not a token type deck. I mean, you could do like a bunch of totems, but still it's not really like worth or that great. So I only give this like 2 stars. It's kind of bad. It's not great. You don't really see it too much right now. Surging Tempest. 1 cost, 1/3 elemental. Has +1 attack while you have overloaded mana crystals. And obviously, overloading isn't hard with Shaman. A 1 cost, 2/3, which all you have to do is to have overloaded mana crystals to have a 2/3. Not too difficult, but also really it's not going to be a 2/3 until like later in the game. I mean, you could have him be a 2/3 on turn 2, but then you can't really do much the next turn, most likely. And then he'll go back down to a 1/3. So, is there really any type of balance that makes him really particularly great? No. But he's not bad either. He's still a relatively decent card. You see 1/3s run pretty off, or 1 cost 1/3s are pretty common in at least Priest with your Northshire Cleric. But that's also because they got a lot of healing. 1/3s were a very good baseline. Now you got some other cards that are like 1 cost 2/2s that are like quote unquote a better baseline, but this is still a very good baseline. 4 1 cost is a 1/3. So I would very much run this in an overload shaman type deck. So I give it 3 stars for playable. Nithog. So we got the legend. We got a legendary. 6 cost, 5/5. Legendary dragon. Battlecry. Summon 2/0/3 eggs. Next turn, they hatch into 4/4 drakes with rush. So if your opponent cannot deal with those 0/3 eggs, now they have to deal with 4/4 drakes with rush, which drakes are obviously dragons as well. So this is actually just a relatively decent card. I don't think this was run in Galakrond Shaman. I believe the dragons that were mostly run in Galakrond Shaman were Squall Hunters, actually, and Big Old Whelps were another very common dragon. You'll see the Big Old Whelps later in the neutral video, or the neutral cards of this. But Nithog still isn't bad. He can be good if you already have control of the board, because then it gives you a bit more stuff that your opponent probably can't really deal with, because now you gave them more stuff to deal with. So it's really like if you're ahead, be more ahead type card, I guess, in a way. So I'd still put him at 3 stars for playable, because he's still not a bad card. It is still relatively decent value. Bandar Smash. 5 cost, 5/5. Legendary for Shaman. Each turn this is in your hand, transform it into a 5/5 copy of a random legendary. This could be good. This could be bad, depending on the game that you have. because there are some good options of having a 5-cost 5/5 of something, and there are some terrible options of having 5-cost 5/5 of something. Like a terrible 5-cost 5/5 would be Millhouse Mana Storm. Would be absolutely terrible to get. Another option would be, let's have a 5-cost 5/5 Nat Peggle. Who wants that? Nobody. That's who. There are some very good options. You could get a 5-cost Malagos. You could get a 5-cost Alexstrasza. There's some good options, but there's also some pretty bad options too. Like, no one wants Millhouse for 5-cost 5/5. Like, that's plus 1/1 in stats, and now he costs 3 more, and he still has that terrible battle cry. So, this could be good, this could be bad. Most people, I don't think most people have really found a way to really run him that much. So I will still put him at 3 stars for playable, because he can still be really good, but also he can be really bad. And then, of course, we have, last but not least, Galakrond. So we start off with normal Galakrond the Tempest, which is Battlecry, summon 2/2 storms with Rush, invoke twice to upgrade, which upgrades to Galakrond the Apocalypse. Summon 2/4/4 storms with Rush, and you upgrade him one more time to Galakrond Azeroth's End, which is summoning 2/8/8 storms with Rush, and you equip a 5/2 Claw. All of them cost 7, all of them giving you 5 armor, and all of them have the hero power of summoning a 2/1 elemental with Rush. Honestly, a very strong card, very amazing. It technically, like, created Galakrond Shaman, because, it's Galakrond. So, if basically, I go back to what I was saying about not too many of these cards were outstanding of like 5 stars and whatever. Basically, most of the Galakrond cards are 5 stars though, because they created their own deck. They're super good, and it's just they're like almost broken, but they just have a lot of good value in them, especially. So, Galakrond for Shaman gets 5 stars for creating a deck that was very good. And just, created it. So, next time I will be talking about the Paladin cards. I will see you then.